I can have your attention here in the Media Center, we will continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability. And glad to be joined now by Aric Almirola, driver of the number 43 Smithfield Ford for Richard Petty Motorsports. Glad to have Aric back with us. Aric, what's it like to be back in the race car?
It's pretty awesome to get that opportunity to get back behind the wheel at Smithfield Ford Fusion and go out in race competition and turn some laps in practice. I got to get back in the car Tuesday at Charlotte, and so I was back on the racetrack. But it's always different when you come for race weekend and you go out there and you're getting ready to compete for the weekend. So it felt really good to be back, and it felt really nice to be able to walk through the garage and see all of my peers and see the guys in the garage area, and to have so many people that walk by and they're like, hey, welcome back, glad to have you back. It certainly makes me feel good.
Outstanding. Let's go ahead and open the floor for questions. We'll start here with Rich, and we'll work our way around.
Rich Thompson, Boston Herald. I was just wondering, is a short track, short race kind of the ideal setting to get your sea legs back?
Not really. You know, I think we didn't script it that way. I think it's a great place to come back, but it wasn't, you know, when we looked at the schedule, it wasn't like we just decided, oh, Loudon's the place. The doctors from the very beginning were very clear with me with this injury. They were like 8 to 12 weeks at best. You're more probable to look up to upwards of 16 weeks. And so I was concerned about the later return, and so I was really diligent with my recovery and my rehab and all of my therapy. So to be able to come back right at 8 weeks just so happened to be Loudon, New Hampshire. And of all the tracks that you look at on the schedule, this is certainly the one that has the least amount of loading as far as banking's concerned and speed. So this is a great racetrack for me to come back and sort of knock the cobwebs off and get back in the race car and not really put my spine through a lot of loading for a long period of time. I think Charlotte, Texas, Dover, those kind of places would probably be a lot worse. But I feel great. I ran a lot of laps at Charlotte. We were there for 4 hours, and I was pretty much in the car a large majority of the time, and I felt great inside the car. So I don't really foresee any issues. I might have some soreness and some spottiness after the race, but I think that's to be expected as far as my doctors are concerned.
Go next to Matt, then to Amy.
Matthew Warnes, Race Pro Weekly, WWLP, NBC Springfield. Aric, after that practice there, can you just talk about the VHT on the track? What do you think it's going to be like on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's certainly moved the typical racing lane around what we typically see here. So it has been sort of a new racetrack, so to speak. Really, we typically run in that second lane off of the yellow line, and we usually dread getting up over that seam. When you look back at video of the races, all of the cars really try and keep their right sides inside of that seam. Well, now that third lane has the PJ1 in it, you see a lot of cars entering in that lane, straddling that seam, and it certainly has sort of thrown everybody a new racetrack here, and I think it's going to change sort of the way we approach the racetrack, the way we attack the corners.
Go to Amy, then to Pat, then to Jeff.
Amy here, up Race Pro Weekly. During your absence, how do you feel about the drivers that did take the wheel of the number 43 car, and what ways did you help them in there?
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing for anybody to kind of get thrown into a seat that's it's not their race car. They're trying to pitch in and do their part to be a relief driver. And so I was really happy and really grateful for the guys that stepped in with Regan and Billy and Daryl to come and give their effort and their 2 cents. And it was really good for our race team also to kind of see, because for the last almost 6 years now, they've had one guy giving them feedback, at least on the 43 car. So to have a few other guys get in the car and sort of give their 2 cents, and really for a lot of their comments to match up with some of the things that I've been saying about the race cars, at least for this year. So that was really nice, and I'm really thankful for those guys to be able to step in sort of on moment's notice and get behind the wheel and go do a good job. Because, you know, I've talked a lot about it this week, but the sport changes so fast. The setups, the cars, everybody continues to evolve and get faster and faster and faster. And so you can't really just take 8 weeks off and show up to the racetrack and go ride around. You still have to go compete. You still have to go try things. And in a way, it really sort of opened the box for our team to go and try some things that, you know, we sometimes get stuck in a rut and sort of do some things and kind of get this little box that we live in and don't really get much outside of that. So to have some other drivers come in, not really have points or anything really on the line for those guys, and sort of just go at it with an open mind, it was really good. And I think Drew and all the guys on my team really rallied together, and they've continued to make the cars better and better and better. So that way when I get back in the car, we can hit the ground running.
Go next to Pat, then to Jeff, then to Jerry.
Pat Nicola, NASCAR.com. What are your expectations for yourself and for the 43 team the rest of the year now?
Just to honestly pick up where we left off. I thought before I wrecked at Kansas, we were a top 15 car. We consistently ran there. We finished 9th at Richmond. We finished 4th at Talladega. I was really excited about Kansas. We had a really good run at Kansas going in the beginning of the race. We had some issues mid part of the race, and then we wrecked. And I thought even middle part of the race, when we had kind of gotten back around 20th, I thought that we had a good enough car to rally back. And so I think really for us, it's really about picking back up where we left off. I'd love to sit here and tell you, we're going to go out and win this weekend, but we have to be realistic and understand where our cars are at. And right now for us, it's about getting back to a top 15, top 10 car. And if we can do that, we'll put ourselves in position to strategize to maybe try and pull a win out. But, you can't do that from running 20th. You can't do that from running 22nd, because a guy that's running 12 spots ahead of you is also going to gamble on fuel. So you have to be running up front to be able to capitalize on opportunities like that. And so for the 43 team and all of us on the Smithfield Ford Fusion, it's about getting this car to running up to where we can take those opportunities and gamble on 2 tires or no tires or fuel strategy to go and try and get us a win here at the close of the year.
Jeff?
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Aric, as you take a step back and you were watching the races on TV and having sort of that experience that you don't usually get when you're in the car, anything jump out at you over the course of these 8 weeks where you're like, this is some new perspective I didn't have before?
Yeah, that I wish we had in-car cameras on every race car. Sitting at home watching on TV, I thought the experience that I got from watching was rather eye-opening. The truth be known, for the last 6 years, I haven't watched many Cup races on TV. So to sit at home and have my tablets out and have lap times and scanners and everything going and watching the race and listening to the broadcast, it's really informative. You can really get a lot from watching the race, and even though you're not there. And so it was a great way for me to keep up with what was going on with the team, what was going on with the changes during the race and the pit stops. But from watching the broadcast, I thought that it would be so cool to have cameras in all the race cars. When you see a guy win a race, for his first time, how cool would that be to get his reaction inside the car, with an in-car camera? Or when you see somebody having trouble to be able to pan to their in-car camera and see their reaction, their frustration. So I feel like, from watching at home, that's one thing that I wish we could get is more in-car cameras inside all of these race cars, just to be able to show the fan what the driver's going through, not only from just racing, but their reactions and their emotions sort of in the moment.
Go to Jerry, then back to Matthew.
Jerry Jordan, kickingthetires.net, and PR, and I actually have 2. First one is, with NASCAR's strict testing policy, did you feel like you were stealing cookies on Tuesday when you were out there at Charlotte?
No, not really. They have a strict testing policy, and we went there and we had plenty of NASCAR personnel there, and They were very aware that we weren't going there. We weren't testing parts and pieces. We weren't testing setups. We went there. We made a couple laps. We made a few small changes just to get the balance where I wanted it. And then after that, it was about just making long runs to make sure that my back could hold up to the loads and the G-forces during a fuel run. So we didn't really gain anything out of going there. And it's important for NASCAR to be able to do that, to let these guys, and including myself and Dale Jr., when he came back, to go and test when you're coming back from a medical injury, because you don't want to waste the team's effort to fly all the way to Loudon, New Hampshire, and me have never turned a lap on a racetrack. And even though I feel great, and my CT scans look good, my MRIs look good, and I go out there and my first lap on the racetrack, I'm like, oh man, I've got a lot of pain. I don't know if I can do this. It just really sets everything back, and it sort of really screws the race team out of that whole weekend, because now you're trying to change seats and put another driver in when he wasn't planning on being there. So it was great for NASCAR to allow us to go, let me run. I think I ran probably close to 100 laps, and I had no pain, so it was easy for the doctors to say, you're good to go.
Second, you were critical of the photographers at the incident at Kansas. We've talked about this. Yeah. There's been a rule enforcement or policy change for photographers on how they take photos or where specifically. Were you aware of that? How does that make you feel now?
Yeah, I was, and I was involved with NASCAR on talking about it. And really, here's the deal: is that, and I think every photographer would appreciate this or understand this, but there's no photographer that's allowed in the infield care center. Right? That's a private area. That's for the doctors and everybody to work on the driver. And no photographer in their right mind would just bust up in the infield care center and start taking pictures of a driver in there. But, being out on the racetrack, obviously I'm out in a public setting, but I was really in a mobile infield care center. I had doctors and track safety crew and a lot of people working on me, trying to help me sort of immobilize my spine, try and help me get out of the car, and I was in a very vulnerable position. And so I felt like the photographers just didn't respect that privacy, and I understand that they're trying to go in there and snap their photo, but I felt like it was up to NASCAR to maybe help with that and help keep the perimeter back. And so we've talked about that. We've had a lot of discussion about that. And I think now they're aware, and I don't think it'll happen again.
Matthew?
Aric, just a follow-up. 4 different series here this weekend. 3 of them are kind of using the same tire. The modifieds are using Hoosier. Do you think there will be any effect on the track with the Hoosier rubber when you guys go out there for practice tomorrow morning? Yeah,
it always changes. I mean, just today, the modifieds practiced for an hour and a half, and then we rolled out for practice this morning. So the track changes as that Hoosier rubber wears off, and we put our own rubber down. So but it's nothing new. It's the same thing that's been happening every time we come to New Hampshire for the last, as long as I can remember, probably longer than Ryan Newman's been coming here. So which is a long time. But yeah, it's not different. We always show up, and there's always modifieds, and there's always different rubber on the racetrack. So I don't think that's a big deal for us.
Any additional questions for Aric? Let's go to Lee.
You have 2 cups of coffee. You're double fisting coffee.
Hey, so do you feel 100%? I mean, after really getting out there and shaking down the car, do you feel 100% now?
I do. I really do. I think. I do. I feel great. I feel like I did. Pre-crash. So I think based on the word that I've gotten from the doctors, Dr. Petty and Dr. Cork, I went again yesterday morning to Charlotte Medical Center there to get tested, and they looked at everything, and everything looks great. I have no concern based on their doctor's recommendation that I can get back in the race car, and physically I feel great. So there's some muscles, I think, that after the race on Sunday might be a little sore or tired just because I've been out of the race car for 2 months, but that'll come back. Even when you start out the year after taking all winter off, the first few races, there's muscles that you're like, man, I haven't used those in a few months, but after you get back in the race car week after week for a few weeks, it gets back to normal.
Aric, It's so good to have you back
Yeah.
here. Good luck the rest of the weekend and going forward the rest of the season.
Glad to be back.
Take care.
Alrighty, we'll continue with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availabilities here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the Overton's 301. With no stranger to this media center, Ryan Newman, driver of the number 31 Grainger Chevrolet. Ryan has 3 career Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series wins here at New Hampshire with 7 top 5s and 18 top 10s. Ryan, you've obviously been pretty successful here at New Hampshire, and you enjoy racing in multiple NASCAR series here. Can you talk to us a little bit about those and your thoughts on coming here this weekend?
Well, just first of all, it's nice to get out 95-degree weather and come up here, and even if with a little bit of sprinkle, it's much better. But you know, the area, the fans, every part of it, every aspect of it, I enjoy up here. The racetrack obviously is a little bit different with the VHT, whatever you want to call it, and we tested up here, so it's kind of ironic to come back and actually go a little bit slower in race trim with the added grip to the racetrack than what we tested up here. So we got ourselves scratching our heads a little bit. We're more competitive than we were at the test, but speed-wise, the track seems to be a little bit off.
Outstanding. With that, we'll open up for questions. We'll start here with Jerry up at the front.
Jerry Jordan.
You going for it?
Yes, I am. PRN kicking the tires. Jimmy went for a bike ride in Detroit. Dale went last week. What's your workout plan, and what are your thoughts on this whole bike craze?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the whole bicycle deal, and I don't quite get those guys and the amount of money they spend on a whatever it is, a 32-ounce bicycle, when all they got to do is just go on Craigslist and get a Schwinn or something like that and pedal half the distance and twice as hard and get better workouts. So I offered, I guess it was probably back Talladega weekend, I offered to get a moped and cut the air for Kenseth and those guys just to kind of give them a little draft, some drafting partners, you know. And but they haven't taken me up on it, so I've just been enjoying fishing and a little bit of the outdoors. My workouts consist more of doing physical activities and sweating than paying money for a bicycle just to coast downhill.
We'll go to Amy and then to Rich.
Amy, Race Pro Weekly. With your win already on a season, what's your mindset going into the remaining races until the playoffs?
We're trying to get our train back on its track, so to speak, from where we were in Phoenix. And our mile-and-a-half program has really, really struggled. Our short track program is not where we need it to be. Even in Phoenix, we didn't lead the amount of laps that we should have if we led the right one. But, you know, we haven't dominated. We see the 78 and the 42, at times the 48 and the 18 have been dominating, maybe not all leading the last lap, but in general, we're not leading enough laps to be as competitive as we need to be for those last 10 races. So our focus is, like it always is, to make the cars drive better, drive faster, and put our
All those 3 wins, or were they just 3 distinct races?
My first one, we had no brakes, which the next 2 definitely had brakes. So, you know, I don't know. I think the biggest thing, and I've always said, and I've said it in here several times, is that this is the birthplace of track position. We always qualified well. I think if you look at my qualifying efforts for those wins, I bet the average is close to 1, 2, or 3. And, you know, I think in general it's just a track that it's somewhat difficult to pass if you have a fast race car. You can keep it there all day. The way the strategy works out, typically you don't need a whole lot of fuel. If you got a good car, you're good on your tires, and clean air is always a gain.
Go in the back to Lee.
SpencerMotorsport.com. Can you describe what's going on when the cars are in the VHT? Because after listening to first practice, there were so many different varying degrees of reports from the drivers, and some guys saying if they got 2 in and they couldn't get out of it, it almost felt like they were going to snap loose. Can you just kind of explain to us in layman's terms what's going on?
I don't know about the layman's terms, but in general, I think the toughest thing is VHT is a chemical, so it reacts with heat, it reacts with our tires, it reacts with friction differently at different times, and at the same time, I do believe it does spread around a little bit. So what we do up in that higher groove, we actually pull that rubber back down. We carry it down the straightaways. There's different aspects of it instead of just the typical asphalt racetrack. So I think from our standpoint, there are more questions about, how long does it take for it to come in? How long do our tires, or how do our tires react to it with the chemical reaction that happens here compared to a concrete track at Bristol, or a different tire and track combination, asphalt combination at Charlotte. So there's a lot of hesitancy, I think, to just going out and going, bonsai fast. We kind of work our way up to speed, and your biggest question after that is it going to be there the next time? It's like a dirt track looking for the cushion. If that cushion gets knocked down, then you got to adjust. And right now, it's kind of acting as a cushion for us. Courage. Yeah. Seriously, I mean, you just kind of get a feel for it. Like qualifying wise, it was more second lap quicker than first lap, and tires just seem to be wanting to take a little bit more time to come in than they typically do here for whatever reason.
Anything additional for Ryan here? Ryan, thanks for coming in, and good luck on
Thank you.
We're now joined by three of the rising stars of the NASCAR Can-Am Pro Series East, who are driving in the United States Services 70 tomorrow. First, the driver of the number 2 UTI NTI Toyota from Tampa, Florida, Colin Cabre. Colin, talk about your season so far.
It's going to be a long one if we talk about all the races. We've had a pretty dismal year so far. Just a lot of bad luck, a lot of mechanical problems. Gotten wrecked the past 3 races. So it's just been one of those where, we're trying to upbring it and get a good year out of it the second half. We're only halfway, or a little over halfway, so we're trying to definitely, improve, and made some changes to the cars and on the teams for halfway through the year, and we're going to some good racetracks that have been good to me the past couple years. So we're definitely trying to, make it a little bit better and hopefully get a W by the end of the year.
And then on the far side, we're joined by driver of the number 17 Bama Buggies Textron Off-Road Toyota from Meriden, Mississippi, Chase Purdy. Chase, you sit 3rd in points, lead the Rookie of the Year. You've won 3 straight poles. How do you turn those poles into wins?
I think just seal the deal. We've had really fast race cars, and we've had a lot of chances to win, and it's just come down to, I think Sobo, I made a driver error, and we lost the race there, and then places like Memphis, we had a tire go down. So I would say 2 of those 3 times, it's just been bad luck and stuff like that. And then last week we had to roll out the backup car, and luckily we got the pole with the backup car. It was really fast during qualifying, and it just we didn't get much time to work on race run speed, so I think it really hurt us in the race, and that kind of put us down a little bit.
And then we're finally joined by driver of the number 12 Dex Imaging Toyota from Huntersville, North Carolina, our championship points leader, Harrison Burton. Harrison, coming off a win at Thompson, coming to a track where your family has had success. Talk about what it means to you to run at New Hampshire.
It's awesome to run at New Hampshire. Everyone always is talking about my dad and led every lap here and won Cup race, and it's really a high point in his career, and I'm ready to try and add to my own name. Everyone always tries to relate Lee and my dad, and everyone in the autograph line is like, "You're Jeff's son, right?" I want to change that. I want to be Harrison. So hopefully I can come out this weekend and bring home a W, and hopefully make it number 5 in the K&N East Series this year, and start making a name for myself.
For the record, Ward has a Cup win here too as well.
Yes, he does, but Ward is probably the most liked driver just because of his voice.
We'll open up to questions for our 3 drivers. We'll go to Jim, and then we'll go to Glenn.
Jim Otter, motorsport.com. Harrison, obviously much different start to this season than last year. What are some of the things that you attribute that to?
It's hard to say. Last year, I felt like I worked just as hard as I did this year. Felt like team worked just as hard as we have this year. Just came out and really went to work in the off season. I think the preparation before the season was a little bit different, I think, on my part and the team's part, and going and testing and trying to better ourselves before the season starts. And that momentum from learning so much in the off season has really carried in all levels of what I've raced. From supers, we've won 3 races and have had a good year so far, or 4 races, and had a good start of the year in that. She's a stat person. And then K&N, we won 4, and ARCA, we've won 1. So I think it's just a culmination of off-season work and coming into the season more prepared on my part and the race team's part.
We'll go to Glenn down here, and then
Glenn Charlton from NASCAR.com. Harrison, so can you describe your mental state besides winning going into a race?
It's hard. I think every driver goes into races different. For me, I like to be focused, obviously, but I like to be laid back too. I think if you get too uptight, you can kind of hurt yourself by overthinking everything. So for me, my mental state is normally pretty laid back going into the race, and as soon as the engines fire, I'm ready to go, and I'm get focused and get intense and really get focused on bringing home the trophy. But as of right now and time before practice and before the race, I'm normally pretty laid back.
Amy Harrop, Race Pro Weekly. So this is for all of you. What are some of the biggest challenges you find on a flat track like here at New Hampshire?
I guess I'll take this one first, but I think just really not overdriving the corner. You really want to get your braking done early and roll through the center with a lot of momentum and get a good run up off, because of places like flat tracks, if you overdrive entry, then the whole corner is messed up really, and you wash up in the center and you don't get a good run up off, and that's going to be crucial here, and I think that's what's going to be fast, and that's what you got to do. So that's one big factor that I think is involved.
For me, I think this is kind of a testament to how every driver style is different. I think the faster you can drive into a flat track, the better. Especially a place like this with big sweeping corners. You can drive in deep and then get off the gas and just let it roll and carry speed without having to hustle through the center of the corner and get to the gas too early and then get it pointed and get a good run up off. So every driver has a different attack, and one's not right and one's not wrong. It's just what works for each driver.
Yeah, they kind of already said most of it, but my style is I like the more big high-banked racetracks, more hammer-down style. That's more me. But these flat racetracks, you just got to be able, like they said, not overdrive it and find mechanical grip, because without the banking, you really have to get the car into the racetrack a lot more than you would, I would say, at like a banked racetrack where that banking helps you. And now that the VHT's down, I'm sure it'll be totally different. It'll probably be a little bit easier to find grip, because if it's anything like it was at Bristol, there's a lot of grip down there and down around the bottom, and our cars don't have as much horsepower as these cars, so we got to carry a lot of momentum.
I'm going to go Reed in the back.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. You just answered my question. Basically, you guys have driven on a VHT treated track before at Bristol. How big a variable do you think that's going to be this weekend?
All right. It's going to be huge. You have to practice on both the VHT and on the track surface without it, because if rain comes and the VHT gets washed away and it's not as strong, you're going to find that your car is going to handle completely different out of the VHT than it would in. Like for Bristol, my car was really, really good for the VHT, but we were a little bit too loose out of it. So when I would get in passing situations or being passed, you'd be struggling up top because you don't have that grip from the VHT up off of the surface. So it's definitely a huge variable and something that each team kind of attacks differently, and something that hopefully we can figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. Obviously, it's really, I almost call it when we ran at Bristol like a fix-all type of substance. It's if you run, we ran up top most of practice above it because we thought it was going to wear away, and then by time race time came, it was a lighter color, but it still had tons of grip. So no matter what, we were back down there. But I think we're going to practice in it most of the day, and then obviously, like Harrison said, practice out of it just in case. You don't know how much they laid down or what they did, if they did it the same as Bristol or not. So you got to be prepared for both.
Yeah, I really think they nailed it with what they said. At Bristol, we were a little tight in the center in the VHT, and then out of it, I felt like the car was handling really well. But at Bristol, it was a rainy weekend. I'm pretty sure it was rain 90% of the time, and so a lot of guys were practicing up top instead of the bottom where the VHT was. And then come race time, like just had this. Everybody kind of had a different game plan, and it was really cool to see how that worked out. But at the end, the VHT prevailed, and I think that's where everybody's going to be today, is in the VHT.
Wait, more late.
SpencerMotorsport.com. Colin, of the 6 remaining races, where do you think you have the best shot to win?
I like to say Dover. We've had our best luck there. I felt like we were fast there last year. Obviously, we won there in 2015. But I feel like Dover, Iowa's one that we have circled on our list, just because of the style of racetrack it is. And I feel pretty confident going into Langley. I ran there in a late model earlier this year, and I've ran there quite a bit in a late model a couple years ago. So I feel like if we can get our short track program a little bit better by the time we get there, I feel that Langley, we just have a good a shot as the rest of them. But Dover for sure.
Jim?
Jim Utter, Motorsport.com. Harrison, sort of the same question, but from a different perspective. Being the series points leader, as you look ahead, how do you think the upcoming races look as far as where you think you can perform well?
I think we got a lot of really good racetracks for us coming up. We got Langley coming up, like he said. It's a short track. We've been good on short tracks recently, and started to get our short track program better to try and catch up with these guys a little bit. They've been really fast. But Iowa, I feel like I'm really confident going into Iowa. I have a truck experience from there, and I feel like that's going to help me a lot of racing and working with the air and side drafting and all that stuff. It's such a weird thing to be side drafting on a track that's only a mile, but it works, and it worked at the truck. So gonna be using that a lot, and I feel like the road courses is something that I feel like I'm gonna perform better than I did last year. Last year, the first 2 road course races I was all right, mid-pack, but then I started to pick it up in New Jersey. In the last road course race, we were running really good and had a track bar mount brake. So I feel like I'm pretty confident going into the road course races, and hopefully can get through those clean and hopefully surprise everyone with a win.
And Colin, speaking of confidence, I know you said that you've had a couple bumps this season so far, but Rev Racing has 4 drivers in the top 10, including you, Jay Beasley, Ruben Garcia, and your younger brother. Can you just talk about a little bit about the confidence that you guys have as a team this year and how you guys are running?
Yeah, I think confidence as a team as a whole is very high. Obviously, I think we're running better than we have in any of the years I've been there as a group. Personally, we've ran better in years past, but as a group, as a total group, we're running a lot better, a lot more competitive. Obviously, Ruben and Chase and Jay are competitive week in and week out, and we're putting a lot of time in at the shop, a lot of time into the cars and making them better. And it's paying off slowly but surely.
Any more questions for these 3? We got one more question from Glenn. Wrap it up.
Harrison, you finished 7th here last year. What is your biggest focus this time around to get a better finish?
I think the biggest focus for me is to unload fast, get off the trailer fast, and do my job early. As far as being in the right lane and having speed fast on my part. And that makes our job so much easier as a race team to work on the car instead of working on myself. You go to a lot of places for the first time, and it's so hard to pick up speed really fast, and it's hard to prepare the right way. But now having experience at this racetrack, I feel like I'll be able to unload faster, and then we'll be able to get our car faster after the first run of practice. I feel like I'll be able to give reliable feedback, and hopefully have a really fast race car by the end of practice.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Good luck today.
Thank you.
Thank you.